with the basics if you're ready. Tell me more about your upcoming tour.
Well, it's where to begin. It's kind of the beginning of a new tour in my mind because the 50th anniversary tour that should have happened in 2020, I think we can call officially over now that there's a new album coming out tomorrow. So this tour will be more about the new album and less about the 50 years. And that doesn't mean, of course, that the album's going to be the only thing people will hear or those songs on it. But there'll be more of an emphasis on the new songs than I've been doing in the last couple of years worth of shows. They're solo shows. That's a point. People sometimes, want to know if it's just me or if there's a band or whatever. So these are solo shows, and it'll be me and some guitars on stage, pretty much.
So I've definitely talked to a lot of musicians that COVID certainly changed things for them. That's a big situation for a lot of people who work in person so much. It sounds like that canceled your 50th anniversary.
The 50th, yeah, it was. I mean, 2020 was the actual 50th anniversary of the release of my first album, and we had planned I think around 100 shows probably that year. But as we all know, nothing happened in 2020. So when we were able to sort of start up again, we did the delayed version of the 50th anniversary tour, and that really just, it kind of wound up at the end of February this year. So like having started at the end of 2021, I guess, be about right. I think we did some shows in December of that year, and that was kind of the beginning of it, and then it carried on all through the last couple of years. But we kind of covered that now, so I'm quite looking forward to getting on with moving forward. And COVID was not fun for anyone. The neat thing was getting back into the theaters when it started to open up, and the vibe with the audiences was fantastic because I felt it too. Everybody felt so happy to be just able to be out, sitting in a room with other people and not, being that wasn't a hospital or whatever. It was a really great feeling. So.
I've heard that from a lot of musicians where they're like, those first shows back, everybody was so excited to just not be in their house and to hear live music.
Yeah, and by the same token, it was a great thing to be able to get out and play the live music.
As I imagine, it's probably the longest time you've had off in a while. You keep pretty busy.
I've had breaks here and there before, but that's the first time I've had one forced on me like that. But it was forced on everybody. We were all in the same boat, so it was okay. We didn't. I mean, some people suffered a lot more from it than my family and I did. My daughter was able to carry on. She goes to a private school, so she was able to keep going to live classes all throughout, and my wife was able to work from home, so which actually was kind of nicer for her. And so, I had a lot of time on my hands, but it became filled with the regular day-to-day family stuff and whatever, and the writing of some songs.
I was going to say that probably, was a good time for writing and working on things. Was that a time you started doing some stuff for this new album? Yeah,
basically these songs date from 2020. I think the first couple of songs that I wrote of this collection come from spring and summer of 2020. And then, it's just, for me, writing is unpredictable. I mean, it's an urge that I feel, but it doesn't always get satisfied on a routine basis. So I'm happy when an idea comes and I can chase it down and get a song. And sometimes there'll be, two songs come out kind of close together. In this case, we spent most of the month of July of 2021 in Maui, and I got 5 songs out of that trip, which is for me is an incredible pace. And so that was very exciting to find myself with, I'd written a couple before we got there, and so all of a sudden I had almost enough songs to do an album just as a result of that one trip, and so we started thinking about making plans then.
Excellent. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that writing isn't always on command, or the people who can do that are very impressive to me. It's usually
there are people who can do that. But for me, I way back 100 years ago, I thought, I'm a writer. I should do what real writers do and try and write something every day, And I did that for about a year, and at the end of the year, I had about the same amount of stuff that was worth having as I would have if I just waited for the good ideas to come along. So I gave up on that right then, and I've never approached it from that discipline point of view since. The exception was writing the book, my memoir that I did a few years ago that required concentrated effort over an extended period, and that was somewhat challenging actually. But we got it done. But songs, no, it's just, for me, I just got to wait for the flash.
Makes sense. I think a lot of people are like that, and it yields good results. It's also going to be a very interesting switch in writing assignment is doing the memoir. Were there any changes in your writing style after that, or did you pull in kind of your musical style sometimes?
I don't think it affected that really. What it did was, because I was focused on the book, and I also happened to, my younger daughter was born around the time I was starting on the book, and so I had this new baby in the house, and I'm trying to write, and there were a lot of very long nights that where I'd be up all night writing, and then up first thing with the baby, etc. But and as a result of all that, I didn't write any songs for quite a long time. And at the end of it all, I was just not, I wasn't even sure I was still a songwriter. Maybe I'm, supposed to be a journalist now or something. But then, the songs came that ended up on the last album, Songs of Bone on Bone, and I was happy about that because once I had one of them, there's a song called Three Albertis on that album that was the first one of those to appear. And when I got that one, it was like, okay, I guess I'm a songwriter after all. And that made me feel good. And so far, that seems to have proven true.
So tell me a little bit more about the new album, O Sun, O Moon.
Well, it's an album of new songs that are the product of this period of time that we've been talking about, from the COVID shutdown to now. The most recent of them was written just before we went in the studio back in the fall. And they cover a range of topics. There's a lot of just trying to reduce this to sort of terms that make sense, but the songs are a reflection of my own sort of interest in spirituality, and of also my response to what this is true of all of my songs really. They come from an emotional response to something I'm confronted with. So they reflect the stuff that we've all been confronted with during this period of time, not just COVID, but the increasing kind of rage of a lot of people in society, and the attendant rudeness that goes with that, and the kind of polarization and everything so that's all in there. Musically, it's a pretty typical album of mine. It's quite eclectic, primarily acoustic based stuff. It's not a rock record, although we got a couple of songs that kind of rock on it. But it's I don't know. It's sort of such a general question. It's hard to know how to answer it.
Right. It's sort of on purpose, because I think some people have that kind of general pitch for their album, but that can be difficult when it's not like a very specific theme. There's probably a lot of different kinds of songs from different eras on here.
Yeah, they're all from the same era. If we think of era as the time between let's say, well, my last album was an instrumental album, came out whatever year came out at fall of 2019, I think. So all these songs were written since then, and they reflect what we've all been going through during that period. But that said, there are different styles musically, and I mean there's some sort of slightly jazzier ones, there's some rootsier ones. It's a different the way we put it together in the studio is different from from anything I've done actually for quite a while. Most of, in fact, I'm trying to think if there's an exception to this, but there isn't really. Colin Linden, he's produced the last dozen or so of my albums. And I have generally had the approach where we go into the studio with a band and we record the songs, simple performance. And then you add or subtract or edit or whatever you need to do after that. You can add instruments or vocal harmonies and stuff like that. But the general approach has been a performance-related one. In this case, or a group performance, I should say. And in this case, it was just me and Gary Craig, who plays drums and percussion on most of the record. I recorded all the songs as a duo, basically, with Gary playing the role of kind of a human click track. And then we added everything after that, which I've done albums like that before, but not for a very long time. It was more like what we did in the 80s. But it worked out well, I think, because I got to get my performances out of the way and get a performance I was satisfied with, and then I could sit back and enjoy what the various guests and other musicians kind of brought to the project, and it was a lot of fun actually doing it that way. So, and people brought in great stuff. It was a constant sense of wonder on my part as to, like, here comes Jim Hoke with all these horns and the marvelous horn writing that he did, the arrangements, and he'd play them a layer at a time, and this sort of thing would unfold, and I'm sitting there listening, commenting. Colin and I would both, with him, with everybody who came in. Generally, you can, if you get good people, you can just rely on them to come up with good stuff. But sometimes it needs a little bit of pushing one way or another to make it fit. How you hear the song. So, there'd be that. There'd be conversations about it. But Alison Russell came in and sang beautifully on a couple of the songs, and required very little direction. Just, what do you hear? And she would hear good stuff, and there it would be. For instance, same with Sarah DeRose, who plays mandolin and sings on it as well, and Sean Colvin. We just, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the tracks that I've listened to thus far are all very enjoyable and even more upbeat than I kind of anticipated. I don't know why.
Well, if you like it, that's great. I don't know. I never try to second guess what's coming. I'm grateful for any kind of song that comes out. They all start with lyrics, and then it's a question of finding the right music for the lyrics. And so, some of the ideas, a song like On a Roll wanted, a more kind of intense and pushy kind of music, and other songs, When the Spirit Walks in the Room, wanted something more hymn-like or reflective. That kind of stuff is all determined by the lyrics, and then of course, once the song is written, then it's you decide what kind of instrumentation you want, if any, besides voice and guitar. And that, again, is also determined by the mood of the song and what kind of sound it should have, etc.
That makes a lot of sense. I was going to say, you definitely pull from a lot of styles and genres, and I was curious how you were able to make that work within different songs when they're all different things sometimes. But it sounds like there's definitely a lot of influence with the lyrics first.
Well, that's it. It's like, it's all me. I think to some extent it has to do with having come out of Canada, where there were, like, when we think of traditional music in North America, we mostly think of American traditional music. And back in the 60s, when I was sort of learning what kind of how to do what I do, a lot of attention. I loved rock and roll and jazz and all kinds of other stuff, but there was a lot of attention paid to the traditional music of the time, and the singer-songwriters from that era were doing music that, depending on who it was, would be more or less aligned with one of the traditions. You'd hear somebody that sounded more like they came from the old-timey world. Somebody else comes from more like sea shanties or something, right, or whatever. But English Canada never really had much of a tradition. That's not strictly true, but it never. There was no body of folk music that corresponded to bluegrass or to blues, for that matter, to African American music. That we didn't have anything like that. So we were listening to American music, and I felt like because there was no tradition that I was part of, it was okay to absorb elements from everywhere and put them to use. And I made a point of listening. I listened to a lot of blues and a lot of jazz and other stuff in it, but I also made a point of listening to music from all over the world. Everything I could get on record, which was actually quite a lot. Everything from kind of lamentations from Azerbaijan to guys playing on a log on a beach in Guadalcanal, and to Tibetan monks chanting to flamenco guitar. I mean, I was listening to all of it, and it's all in there. So it's just like learning a language. You can, or like learning a vocabulary. The more words you know, the more different ways you can express yourself, and I guess it's worked like that with music for me.
Excellent. It's good to hear. I feel like not enough people explore some of the music from further away. It's amazing. It's even more accessible than it's ever been with the internet.
Well, that's it. That's the thing. Everything's global now. So, but I mean, back in the day, you relied on the Folkways Records label pretty much, and some other really obscure record labels who would put out these, the music of other cultures. But now it's just everywhere. Although, that said, it's also more homogenized. So, if you can hear African music online, but mostly what you're hearing is the pop music and dance music and stuff. That's not very different from disco music anywhere else. And if you want to dig deeper and find the roots of that music, or the music that's specific to a given country, you got to use a little more effort, but it's all out there. I don't know. I'm still discovering stuff. I get introduced to music. So somebody gave me a recording of guitar music from Madagascar a while back. That's stunning guitar playing. And a friend of mine did a lot of work in Turkey playing with a Turkish DJ, but in the course of doing that, he discovered all these incredible musicians that play more traditional Turkish music, and I mean, it's the richness of what's out there is inspirational, really, and if you have the time to explore it, there's a lot of rewards there.
You have a pretty massive catalog of music. How do you decide what you're going to play at your shows?
With difficulty. There's in this case, it's obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, like there'll be a lot of emphasis on the new songs, on the songs from the new album, but and there are certain songs that I feel I have to play because people will feel cheated if they don't get to hear them. But then once you've got those, what else do you do? And it's a question of finding and trying to sort of put in some older stuff or various things from here and there that I feel like playing that fit with the things that need to be there. I'm still working that out as to exactly what the repertoire will be for this tour. But the one thing I know for sure is that there will, songs like Wondering Where the Lions Are, Lovers in a Dangerous Time will be in the shows because I think people want to hear those songs, and there'll be a lot of. I won't be doing the whole new album in each show, but it'll be well represented. So but I haven't figured out how that's all going to fit together yet.
I kept seeing when I was reading about the album. I kept seeing references to getting older and aging, at least for kind of the first single. Has getting older influenced your writing style or your music? And what do you kind of hope to do moving forward as a musician? Because I think you still have plenty of time left. You're touring, you're making music, but what else do you want to get done?
Well, it's a wait and see. I'd still like to do an album of covers at some point, which I've wanted to do for years and never quite got it together. But beyond that, I just if I keep writing songs, then I'm going to want to record those songs. I say if I keep writing them because I never know, and I mean history would suggest that I am going to, but I don't take it for granted. It's I can imagine a day when there won't be any more ideas, or when the ideas I have are ideas that I've had too many times already, and there's nothing new to put out there. I mean, I don't look forward to that, but it could happen. But in the meantime, until it does, I guess I'm going to keep doing what I do, and looking forward to playing. I mean, the playing live allows the songs to really live. I guess it's sort of a weird way to say that, but that's when the songs really work the way they're supposed to work, when they're a vehicle sort of for an exchange of energy in a way between me and an audience and among the members of an audience, all in a room together. That's when everything really comes into its own. The studio's fun. It's more technical, and I like working in the studio, but live is really what counts. So I'm hoping to be able to keep that going as long as I can. At some point, that will stop too, but that'll be obvious when it does, when that point comes.
And my last question, I'm not sure if you're going to like it, but I always have to ask it. What should folks expect for your upcoming Kent stage show?
Well, there's no dancers. I mean, I kind of covered a lot of that already, but the in terms of the performance, it's me sitting there with some guitars, playing the songs, and there's talk. I mean, I don't just play the songs and smile at people. I sometimes I talk too much. Some people would tell you anyway, but it's just it's like being the host at a reception or something in a way. At a reception makes it sound too formal, but I feel like if I'm there in front of an audience, it's my job to make them feel welcome, to communicate what I have to communicate, and to try to facilitate that sharing of energy that I mentioned, and so that's what the shows are about. The songs are a vehicle for that, and people will hear a bunch of songs, and they'll hear a bunch of guitar playing, and they'll probably hear some talk, which may or may not be interesting for them, but hopefully it will be.
I think it will be. Yeah, I've enjoyed chatting with you so far. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. Is there anything else that you want to say? Anything else you want folks to know about the new album or tour?
No, I mean, it's all an unknown for me because I haven't. There's a few of these songs that I've been playing in the shows that in the last couple of years, but only a few, and so I'm really kind of curious to hear and sense how the songs will be received by people, and it's a big question mark for me, but it's the kind of welcome one and an exciting one because I like these songs and I like the album, and I'm anxious to get out there and show it off.
Yeah, it's got to be interesting in those first few days of road testing something that hasn't maybe been heard yet.
Yeah, it's I find when I play a song for the first time in front of an audience, it's like holding up a mirror to it in a way, or to myself. I can write the song and I can imagine what its effect is going to be, but until you actually put it out there, you don't really know. And sometimes it can be, sometimes it can be great, and sometimes it can be disturbing because, okay, you know what? I don't really like this song after all. That happens. I don't expect it to happen with these songs, because I've played them all many times now, and not in front of audiences necessarily, but in front of some other people. So it's I'm not too worried about that. But when a song's brand new, you don't really know. Right? You call it road testing, and it is like that. It's like, this is, am I going to like this song when I'm forced to sort of see it through or hear it through other people's ears? And that's, it's a good test, though. I mean, if a song doesn't stand up to that, then it shouldn't survive.
It's got to be a very interesting situation, but I don't know how you power through the second half of a song when you're like, oh, it's not working.
Well, it's not quite like that. It's like, it's more after the fact. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I've played the song. I'll get through. My main concern is getting through the song without screwing it up. And then, but after the fact, you can kind of sense, well, and it's not about applause necessarily. It might be, but sometimes people can be really enthusiastic about a song that I don't think really works. And sometimes it's very obvious that it didn't work for the audience. Once in a while, that happens too. But I mean, people are considerate and kind, and my audiences are anyway in general. So they don't throw stuff at me when they don't like a song. But you can kind of go, if you kind of play the show back in your head afterwards, you can kind of feel what worked and what didn't.
Well, I've kept you for a while, but thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and look forward to doing the shows with you guys.
Yeah, excellent. We're excited to have you.
All right.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks. All the best.
Bye.
Bye.